Good afternoon and welcome to our daily press briefing. I'm very happy to welcome you to the Commission's virtual press room. We are Monday, the 28th of September. Tout d'abord, j'attirerai votre attention sur la déclaration de la présidente von der Leyen que nous avons publiée hier suite au résultat du référendum qui a eu lieu en Suisse hier sur la libre circulation des personnes. La présidente notamment a salué les résultats du référendum en y voyant, je cite, un signal positif pour continuer à consolider et à approfondir notre relation. La présidente a dit, je cite encore, « Le vote des Suisses valide un des piliers centraux de notre relation, la liberté mutuelle de bouger, de vivre et de travailler en Suisse et dans l'Union européenne. » La déclaration est disponible entièrement dans nos daily news d'aujourd'hui. Ensuite, je vous rappelle que la présidente se rend aujourd'hui au Portugal suite à l'invitation du président portugais Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. Ce soir, la présidente rencontrera le Premier ministre António Costa. Leur réunion sera suivie d'une déclaration à la presse et d'un dîner de travail organisé par le Premier ministre. Et puis, demain matin, la présidente von der Leyen prononcera un discours à la Fondation Champalimaud sur le plan de relance européen, suivi par un déjeuner de travail avec le président Rebelo de Sousa. Son programme à Lisbonne se termine avec une visite demain du Conseil d'État. Et maintenant, je donne la parole à Martha pour une annonce sur SURE.
Merci Dana. Bonjour tout le monde. Vendredi dernier, l'instrument SURE visant à atténuer les risques de chômage durant la crise de la Covid-19 a franchi une nouvelle étape importante. Le Conseil a en effet approuvé un soutien financier de 87,4 milliards d'euros en faveur de ses États membres sous la forme de prêts de l'Union au titre de SURE. Le soutien aidera les États membres à financer l'augmentation très marquée des dépenses publiques en raison du recours à des dispositifs nationaux de chômage partiel et à des mesures similaires. La Commission va lever les fonds sur les marchés internationaux des capitaux dans le courant des prochaines semaines et les verser sous forme de prêts adossés aux États membres qui en ont fait la demande. D'autres États membres peuvent encore présenter leur demande d'assistance financière et pour rappel, jusqu'à 100 milliards d'euros peuvent être fournis au titre de cet instrument communautaire. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Martha. And now over to Christian for an announcement on the European Public Prosecutor's Office.
Good afternoon. Today, the European prosecutors of the new European Public Prosecutor's Office are taking their oath in a ceremony at the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg. Vice President Jourova, Commissioner Hahn, and Commissioner Reynders have issued a statement today on this occasion. To remind you, the new European Public Prosecutor's Office is the first supranational public prosecution office which will be able to bring cases to court in the participating EU member states, potentially saving billions of euros for the European taxpayer. Let me quote from the statement, quote, "Criminals know no borders. It is time prosecutors do not either. The European Public Prosecutor's Office will be a game changer in fighting cross-border financial crimes," unquote. You can find the full statement online, where you can also find an overview of the structure of the European Public Prosecutor's Office and more information about the important work it will carry out.
Merci Christian. Et enfin, la dernière de nos annonces concerne le fait que le vice-président Šefčovič tiendra cet après-midi une conférence de presse vers 2 heures de l'après-midi suite à la troisième réunion du comité conjoint Union européenne au Royaume-Uni qui a lieu aujourd'hui. Et avec ceci, nous sommes prêts pour vos questions. So please indicate in the system if you have a question to ask. And indeed, I see a number of hands raised. And for the first one, the floor goes to Tanya. hoping that she's on the line.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yes, Tanya, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
This is Tanya Milevska from the Macedonian News Agency. I guess it's a question for Anna. There was an incident recorded on camera of police brutality against people of Roma descent in North Macedonia late last week. And virtually no response from the authorities. So I wanted to know if the Commission would have, if the Commission is aware of the incident and if there is any sort of reaction. And also I wanted to ask, maybe since the Commissioner is meeting with the Macedonian Minister for Foreign Affairs tomorrow morning, what will be on the agenda? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya. I will invite Anna to join me on stage for providing an answer.
So ours is that one on? Okay. Thanks very much, Tanya, for the question. I think that from our side, it's very clear that we condemn any unjustified use of force. We note that the authorities have condemned these incidents that you have made reference to, and they have already taken action to investigate and to bring to justice those responsible. As far as the investigations as such, you know that we do not comment on the ongoing investigations or judicial proceedings, but our position is very clear that we condemn unjustified use of force. As regards to your second question about the meeting that will take place between Commissioner and the North Macedonian Minister, I think that it's basically in the framework of the regular contacts that we have with all our Western Balkan partners in order to take forward the EU agenda, and I will be very happy to get back to you with a readout if it can be provided after the meeting.
Thank you very much, Anna. I will now invite you to ask additional questions to Anna if you have today. So please only keep your hand raised if you have questions for Anna at this point. I see that Georgi's hand is raised. So Georgi, please go ahead.
It's on another issue, Dana, sorry.
All right, so then if you allow me, I will check once more if there are additional questions for Anna at this stage. No, I don't see any hand raised, so thank you very much for today, Anna. And Georgi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dana. Well, it's on the conflict Armenia-Azerbaijan. I don't know if I should call it conflict or war, because one side says that it has killed 500 soldiers from the other side says it has killed 200 from the other one. So it looks to me as a war. I have seen, of course, the reactions so far, but obviously the situation is escalating, and maybe preempting, the wish that OSCE Minsk group deals with the issue. I would like to know if the European Union can do something more, given that the Caucasus is officially territory of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgi. Peter, join me duly on stage to provide you an answer.
Thank you, Georgi. Indeed, we hope and we urge everyone to do everything they can in order to prevent an all-out war from breaking out, because this is the last thing the region needs. The escalation around Nagorno-Karabakh is very worrying because it carries the risk of serious escalation and serious consequences for the regional stability, and that's why the EU has officially called on both sides to refrain from violence, to stop immediately the armed confrontations. We called for an immediate ceasefire, cessation of hostilities, de-escalation, and strict observance of the ceasefire. And the main message along these lines, which was delivered to foreign ministers of both countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, by the High Representative already yesterday, was that there is no military solution to this conflict. So indeed, we are really urging all involved to return to negotiations of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict settlement under the auspices of the OSCE Minsk group co-chairs, without preconditions, because this is really urgently needed. And for the part of your question where you asked, when you asked what the EU can do, I mean, we are doing already the necessary diplomatic outreach. One sign of this is the mentioned phone call by the HRVP with foreign ministers of both countries, and our strong support for the OEC Minsk group co-chairs and their efforts, and our general diplomatic outreach with all the partners who might have influence on this to really achieve the de-escalation and the cessation of hostilities, because this is what is really urgently needed.
Thank you very much, Peter. I will now invite you to ask additional questions to Peter on the subject first, if you have. So please only keep your hands raised if you have a question for Peter. I see that Georgi has his hand raised, so I assume you have a follow-up. So if that's the case, go ahead, Georgi.
Indeed, I have a follow-up. Peter, you mentioned the other partners, and indeed there is a danger of a spillover. We know that certain countries expressed support. For example, Turkey, strong support for Azerbaijan. Even Pakistan expressed such a support. And we know that Armenia has a military defense agreement with Russia. So there is a serious risk of spillover, internalization of the conflict, and I would like to know what role is the European Union, your services in particular, playing in order to avoid such a spillover. Thank you.
Well, the short answer would be very intense diplomatic outreach. Not only through HRVP and his contacts, but also on other levels. You know, we have a special representative for this region. So this is one of the examples how we are involved on an everyday basis, by the way, because we are very much interested in seeing this problem solved. That's why we are supporting the OEC's Minsk group, led by the co-chairs, in their efforts to solve this long-standing issue. And you are right. I mean, apart from the very strong international calls on stopping the violence, there have been various announcements about supporting one side or the other. But what is very important, and this is also part of the message we are sending to our partners, everyone, all the regional actors, should contribute to stopping the armed confrontation and contribute towards the peaceful settlement of this issue. So this is our main message, because the escalation, as we have witnessed now over the weekend, but also back in July, is worrying, and this carries really serious consequences for the regional stability. And as I said, no one should be interested, and no one is going to profit from an all-out war breaking out. And this is something we want to prevent, and we are calling, as the EU, as the international community, on all the actors involved to stop immediately, and on all the other actors in the region to contribute to stopping the confrontations.
Thank you very much, Peter. I will now invite you to ask additional questions to Peter, if you have any today. I understand that Alain questions is about the same issue, so Alain, la parole est à toi. Vas-y.
Oui, vous m'entendez? Je crois que oui.
Oui,
Ouais.
ça va.
Bonjour tout le monde. Peter, pourrais-tu nous dire s'il y a eu des contacts entre le haut représentant et Ankara, compte tenu du rôle que Ankara compte et veut jouer dans cette région et dans cette affaire? Et d'autre part, avez-vous des informations sur des milices syriennes qui auraient été importées sur le terrain? Merci.
L'exemple que j'ai donné sur l'appel téléphonique entre le haut représentant et le ministre des Affaires étrangères de l'Arménie et de l'Azerbaïdjan, c'est seulement un exemple de les contacts. Comme je dis, il y a plusieurs des contacts dans les différents niveaux. Et l'objectif de ces contacts, c'est la urgence d'arrêter les confrontations des armes. C'est très important. Sur l'aspect de votre question sur les contacts avec l'Ankara, dans ce moment, je peux confirmer seulement les contacts qui ont lieu entre aux représentants de l'Arménie et l'Azerbaïdjan. Mais comme je dis, nous sommes très, très engagés, très, très actifs d'entretenir, avoir les contacts avec tous les acteurs, tous les partenaires qui peuvent contribuer à la cessation des confrontations et à l'arrêt des confrontations dans la région.
Merci beaucoup, Peter. Je vous invite maintenant à marquer votre intérêt, à poser une question à Peter sur ces sujets. Voilà, je vois que Alain a une question de suivi. Vas-y, Alain. Mais je pense que tu dois appuyer sur Speak et activer ton mic, ton microphone. Oui, voilà, Alain, vas-y. Est-ce que nous avons Alain en ligne?
Peter, voilà, oui, Peter, je reviens parce que tu as oublié de répondre à ma question sur les milices syriennes.
Ah, pardon, oui. On a vu des nouvelles sur les accusations sur cette importation, je dirais, des milices syriennes et aussi d'autres forces dans la région, mais nous n'avons pas vu les faits pour justifier ou soutenir ces allégations. La position de l'Union européenne, c'est clair en général, aucune interférence externe, c'est acceptable. Et on doit éviter l'intervention et l'interférence de l'extérieur dans ce conflit.
Merci beaucoup, Peter. Je vous invite maintenant à continuer à me signaler si vous avez des questions pour Peter en soulevant votre main dans les systèmes. Et je pense que Sarantis a une question pour Peter. Sarantis, go ahead.
Yes, hi. It's on another topic though. It seems that the exploratory talks between Greece and Turkey will start soon, but we see that there are still Turkish vessels in the exclusive economic zone of Cyprus. Do you believe that Cyprus can have a similar dialogue with Ankara while Turkish ships are still in its territory? Thanks.
Thank you, Sarantis. On this, I would only refer to very well-known position of the European Union when it comes to the tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean. Very briefly, that the escalation is needed and the dialogue is the path to follow in order to solve all the issues. You know that Turkey and this whole issue of tensions in the Eastern agenda will be on the table for the leaders later this week. So I wouldn't go beyond that, and we will see what kind of steps or course of action the leaders of the EU will decide to be followed in order to achieve the de-escalation and the dialogue in the region. Hopefully it will be possible, and we've seen a lot of diplomatic activities over the last few days and weeks also with the aim to de-escalate the situation and start the dialogue. So we hope that these activities will continue, that it will be possible to solve all the open issues in a dialogue, in a constructive engagement based on respect for international law and in line with the principle of good neighborly relations.
Thank you very much, Peter. I will now invite colleagues to keep their hand raised if they have additional questions for Peter on this subject. The talks between Turkey and Greece. I see Athanasios' hand is raised, so Athanasios, go ahead.
Thanks very much. Bonjour, Peter. We have discussed this earlier, some weeks ago, but it seems that the communication problem persists. We have heard the special advisor to the High Representative, Natalie Tots, speaking on a forum on Friday and expressing what you have referred to as personal opinions on this whole issue of the dispute between Greece and Turkey. She referred to macho policies, and she offered a forecast on what's going to happen in the summit, saying that there won't be no sanctions and explaining why. Let's leave aside the essence of these comments and let's focus on the issue at hand, which is communications. So why are people still going beyond the line of the Commission and the High Representative in these issues? Why do you have special advisors and others talking to forums, employees, expressing their personal opinions, and creating two strings of communication and two strings of line for the Commission and the High Representative and the External Action Service? What are you going to do about it? Since the last time we referred to this issue here from the midday briefing, did you contact these individuals? Did you talk with them about the issue at hand? And did you discuss it with your superiors in the Directorate General for Communication? Did you do anything about it, and why is it still out there? The whole issue, I mean, creating two strings of info by you, the official line, and others who are the, I don't know, semi or non-official personal line on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Athanasios, for your complex question. Actually, I will give the floor to Nabila to provide you an answer on this one. She should be connected from home, and I hope that we can have her on the line. Yes, we do. Bonjour, Nabila.
Bonjour. Hello, Athanasios, and thank you for your question. I mean, let me remind you of the framework of this, the special advisors. You know that the Commission appointed 27 special advisors to the Commission for 2021. You have all the information that is relevant on the website of the commissions, and the special advisors are selected based on their expertise and qualifications. There are two types of special advisors. You have the non-institutional special advisors, which provide direct assistance to the President, the Vice Presidents, and the Commissioners of the European Commission. And there is the institutional special advisors assist institutional bodies of the Commission, and then you have the High Representative Vice President Borrell, who has 4 non-institutional special advisors. When it comes to the case of Nathalie Tocci is not part of the HRVP cabinet, nor of the EEAS. She is one of the 4 non-institutional special advisors of the HRVP. She is an advisor on framing the global strategy and not on specific foreign policy. So the information you can have specifically on the Commission's website as who she is and what she does. So as explained on several occasions, and as always, clearly indicated on every piece of her account or whenever she expresses herself, she expresses her own opinions and her independent work as an academic. So this is what I can say on this.
Much, Nabila. I am now checking if there are additional questions for Peter, whom we have here, and Nabila, whom we have on the line on foreign affairs matters. I see that Athanasios' hand is still raised. So, Athanasios, if you have a follow-up, now is the moment.
I understand that the question was complex, so I will try to oversimplify it. I understand that someone is non-institutional advisor and personal opinions and so on, but is that okay with you, with the DG COM, with the SPP, the Service por Parole? Is it okay with you to have 2 lines of communication out there like this in a such, let's say, tense and delicate diplomatic environment and structure and situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this, Athanasios. I will answer by telling you that what is really extremely important is to identify who is speaking in the name of the institution and who is speaking in the name of the HRVP specifically, since you also mentioned tracks which concern the HRVP and the status of each advisor, and provided that it is specified very clearly and visibly that certain persons who work otherwise in a different capacity within the institution speak in their individual capacity, there is a right that they have to express their opinions and to put it in the public domain. Again, the most important thing is that this is clearly stipulated as such and identified as such. But I give the floor again to Nabila to complete on this question.
Well, I mean, indeed, I don't think I can say it better than what Dana just stated. I mean, for us, we have one line of communication, and it is the lines that are the SPP is the communication for you as journalists in general. So we have one very clear line of communication. We have the Natalie Tocci, as far as we are concerned, is a very is an independent advisor who speaks her own opinions. But when you want to have information, we have all our lines of communications that are official and that reflect the line of the HRVP.
Thank you very much for this, Nabila. I will now further offer you the possibility to indicate your interest in asking questions to Peter or Nabila on this matter. I see that Maria has a question for us. Maria, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. All good.
Okay. I just want to follow up to Athanasius' question, mostly for the substance. So, Peter, Nabila, are the sanctions still on the table? I mean, the sanctions against Turkey are still on the table of the leaders for the European Council? Thank you.
Okay, so I take this one. Regardless what independent think tankers, analysts or commentators are saying, the position of the EU when it comes to the tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean and possible use of restrictive measures is still the same. The EU was very clear that what we seek is the escalation, dialogue, and solving the issues in discussions. If this will not be possible, then it's for the leaders, when they meet at the European Council later this week, to discuss in which direction our relations with Turkey should go. And this is where I would stop, because it's up to the leaders to discuss the situation, to review what happened, what is going to happen, what is going on, and then to say whether we are going to pursue the path of the dialogue and engagement, or if they see situation as calling for other steps than the dialogue. But anything about sanctions or saying that they will be introduced or not introduced at this stage is premature, because in the end, this is the decision of the leaders which they will make or indicate the direction in which the discussions and engagement by the EU with Turkey should go. They will do it later this week.
Thank you very much, Peter. So I will invite you again to raise your hand if you have questions for Peter or for Nabila on foreign affairs issues. That doesn't seem to be the case. So Peter, thank you very much for today. And I will open the floor to other questions. And I see that Stefan has his hand raised. So Stefan, go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. J'ai une question concernant la déclaration de la présidente après le vote en Suisse. Et je voulais savoir, il y a aussi mention d'un coup de téléphone entre la présidente von der Leyen et la présidente suisse. Est-ce qu'il y a déjà une date pour cette conversation, ou est-ce qu'elle a peut-être déjà eu lieu? Et de manière générale, quels sont les prochains pas que vous avez prévus concernant l'accord cadre? Qu'est-ce que vous attendez du côté suisse? Si on pouvait avoir un peu plus de détails là-dessus, ce serait pas mal. Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour la question, Stéphane. En ce qui concerne le coup de fil entre la présidente von der Leyen et la présidente Sommaruga, auquel la présidente s'est référée hier dans la déclaration qu'elle a faite à la presse suite au référendum, les arrangements sont en train d'être faits et nous nous attendons à avoir un coup de fil au cours de la semaine. Nous n'avons pas encore une date et un timing précis à annoncer. Comme tu le comprendras, justement, les prochains pas vont être discutés lors de ce coup de fil que nous sommes en train d'essayer de planifier. Donc, je n'ai pas de précision à t'apporter à ce stade. Je te rappelle que lors de sa déclaration à la presse hier, la présidente s'est référée à l'accord institutionnel cadre que nous avons négocié avec la Suisse en 2018. Et je cite de la déclaration de la présidente qui dit que justement elle s'attend maintenant à ce que le Conseil fédéral suisse avance sur la signature et la ratification de cet accord. Mais il n'y a pas de plus amples précisions sur les prochains pas. Une fois que nous allons avoir une discussion entre les deux présidentes, nous allons pouvoir peut-être être en mesure d'apporter plus de précisions. Voilà, c'était ce que j'avais à dire à ce sujet. Je vois la main de Stéphane toujours levée. Donc Stéphane, si tu as une question de suivi, vas-y. Stéphane, est-ce que tu es toujours en ligne? Je pense que nous n'avons pas Stéphane.
Non, j'ai plus rien.
D'accord, ok.
Je laisse la parole à mes collègues. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Je vous invite maintenant à lever votre main si vous avez d'autres questions au sujet de la Suisse. Donc, s'il vous plaît, gardez votre main levée seulement si c'est le cas, si vous avez une question sur la Suisse. Je comprends que ce n'est pas le cas. Donc, j'ouvre le champ à d'autres questions sur d'autres sujets. Et je vois que Julien a une question pour nous aujourd'hui. Julien, vas-y.
Oui, bonjour Dana. C'est une question en fait assez simple. En fait, je voulais juste savoir qu'est-ce qui a motivé la décision de reporter non pas la discussion, mais la présentation du rapport annuel sur l'état de droit. Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour ta question, Julien. En ce qui concerne les dates des discussions ou d'adoption des différents dossiers à l'agenda du collège, je n'ai pas de précisions à te faire à ces moments précis parce que, comme tu le sais, c'est seulement les lundis et en général, c'est les lundis après-midi que les chefs de cabinet des commissaires se réunissent pour discuter des dossiers en cours qui sont en train d'être préparés. Et c'est suite à cela et en fonction de la maturité ou de l'état de préparation et d'avancement des dossiers que les décisions sont prises sur les dates concrètes quand le collège abordera ces sujets, discutera ces sujets, et aussi, si les cas échéants, des dates spécifiques d'adoption. Donc, pour l'instant, je n'ai pas de commentaires à te faire là-dessus. L'agenda des futurs collèges va être confirmé après la réunion des chefs des cabinets qui a lieu cet après-midi. Je vous invite désormais à lever la main si vous avez d'autres questions à ce sujet. Je vois que Julien a toujours sa main levée, donc si tu as une question de suivi, Julien, vas-y.
Donc, ce qui veut dire que je pourrais poser la même question demain.
Demain, j'aurai des précisions à t'apporter, peut-être proactivement, comme nous avons toujours l'habitude de le faire. Les mardis, nous vous présentons l'agenda des réunions du collège qui a été arrêté par les chefs des cabinets. Et demain, effectivement, il me sera possible de te dire quels sujets sont à l'agenda de la réunion des commissaires qui aura lieu ce mercredi matin, comme notre tradition le veut. Rien n'est décidé avant que les chefs des cabinets, les représentants des commissaires se réunissent pour faire l'état des lieux de l'avancement des différents dossiers qui sont planifiés pour les agendas des collèges, des réunions des collèges. Je vous invite désormais à lever la main si vous avez d'autres questions à ce sujet. Je pense que Mihaela a une question à ce sujet. Mihaela, vas-y. Non, ce n'est pas le cas. Sa main n'est plus levée. Donc, je vois que Thomas, il a sa main levée. Thomas, vas-y. Thomas?
Oui, je m'excuse de revenir sur la Suisse, mais malheureusement, quand tu parlais à Stéphane, j'étais justement en live pour la radio. Si je regarde la déclaration de Mme von der Leyen, elle invite à progresser sur l'accord cadre rapidement. Or, hier, le Conseil fédéral, vous le savez certainement, a parlé de faire le point dans les prochaines semaines. Alors, est-ce qu'on a le temps? Est-ce que le rythme plutôt relax qui le Conseil fédéral semble vouloir adopter vous convient ou au contraire, est-ce que le temps pour vous presse? Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour la question, Thomas. À ce stade, je ne peux que te référer à ce que la présidente a dit hier. Et effectivement, elle a dit qu'elle s'attendait à ce qu'il y ait des mouvements rapides. Je ne peux pas élaborer plus que ça, et je ne veux pas le faire avant qu'il y ait une discussion entre les deux présidentes. Comme je viens de répondre à Stéphane, nous sommes en train de travailler pour organiser une discussion téléphonique entre la présidente von der Leyen et la présidente Sommaruga. Et il n'y a pas d'autres précisions à faire à ce sujet, au prochain pas et au timing de ces prochains pas, avant qu'on ait cette discussion téléphonique. Voilà, je vous invite désormais à poser d'autres questions si vous avez au sujet suisse. Je ne vois pas de main levée, donc on va ouvrir les champs à d'autres questions. Et effectivement, Mihaela est de retour. Mihaela, vas-y.
Bonjour, tu m'entends là?
Oui, tout va bien, on t'entend.
Salut, salut. Écoute, apparemment, pas apparemment, on sait que l'association des journalistes européens, section France, vous a envoyé une lettre la semaine dernière, par laquelle ils protestent contre l'invasion de la langue anglaise dans les institutions européennes. Et ça, c'était suite à la présentation du plan de migration et d'asile qui apparemment fut présenté qu'en anglais. Tous les documents sont parvenus à la presse, etc., qu'en anglais. Alors, je me demandais si vous auriez une réaction à ça. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mihaela, pour cette question qui me permet en fait de clarifier que nous avons effectivement bien reçu la lettre de l'Association des journalistes européens et que cette lettre a toute notre attention. Ça me permet de réitérer le fait qu'au service du porte-parole et dans la commission, au sein de la commission tout entière, nous attachons la plus grande importance au multilinguisme. Comme vous le savez, tout le matériel de presse que nous produisons est rapidement disponible au minimum en français, anglais et l'allemand, et que dans la plupart des cas, il est disponible dans toutes les langues de l'Union européenne. Et vous connaissez, j'espère, l'importance que nous accordons au français. Vous pouvez nous poser à tout moment et à tous les porte-paroles les questions en français. Et effectivement, le français est un critère de recrutement pour les porte-paroles de la Commission européenne parce que nous devons être capables et nous voulons être capables à tout moment à répondre sur tous les sujets dans cette langue. En ce qui concerne le paquet migration qui a été adopté le mercredi dernier, nous comprendrons la frustration des collègues qui n'ont pas eu accès tout de suite à tous les documents en français et en allemand. Et je tiens à souligner l'exceptionnalité de la situation que nous avons eue avec ce paquet. C'est un paquet très volumineux, très dense, avec beaucoup d'instruments législatifs. Donc, à la fois le paquet législatif, donc les propositions elles-mêmes, ainsi que la communication de ce paquet, ont dû prendre en compte le fait qu'il fallait, pour l'équipe de ceux qui font la communication, attendre les discussions finales afin de finaliser les paquets de communication. Et donc, comme vous le savez, les communiqués de presse a été mis à votre disposition dans toutes les langues mercredi l'après-midi, environ 2 heures après effectivement la fin du collège, ainsi que tous les sites internet dédiés au paquet qui est dans toutes les langues, qui était déjà pour vous dans toutes les langues, disponible pour vous dans toutes les langues le mercredi dans les cours de l'après-midi. C'est un retard qui est regrettable, bien évidemment, mais nous nous réjouissons de voir que ça n'a pas nui à la couverture médiatique du paquet qui a été considérable. Et laissez-moi de réitérer en conclusion notre attachement le plus profond au multilinguisme et au fait que nous allons redoubler nos efforts, que vous ayez tout de suite le matériel disponible dans toutes les langues, mais surtout bien évidemment en anglais, français et l'allemand pour tous les paquets. Je me demande s'il y a d'autres questions à ce sujet. à ces moments. Donc, s'il vous plaît, gardez votre main levée si vous avez des questions à ce sujet. So, I see that there are no questions on this. So then I enlarge I open the floor to other questions, and I see that David has his hand raised. David, go ahead.
Hi, Dana. Thanks. Thanks so very much. First, I'd like to note that there's been an awful lot of French spoken at this particular midday, and I hope that we're starting to keep a clock and a counter for how much English and French is spoken, and that eventually we'll compare notes. Really, thanks to everyone in the EU who does a great job to make sure that we all understand everything in any language. My question is actually about coronavirus and quarantine, and the number of commissioners that we've seen who have had to announce in recent days, the latest being First Vice President Timmermans, that he has to go into quarantine measure. And I wonder if you could talk to us about whether the Commission is revisiting its working policies, procedures. It seems that there's both an increased risk because cases are up, but also perhaps some sort of gap in that commissioners do seem to have, senior officials do seem to have access to very quick results from testing, and yet also feel compelled to isolate. So is it an issue of some contradictory guidelines or what's happening? But it does seem there's some greater disruption going on to the agendas and operations of your commissioners.
Thank you very much for the question, David. So indeed, we have had several cases where college members have gone into health isolation by prudence and according to our protocols, under which contact with somebody who tested positive requires self-isolation and testing, and of course pending the results of testing and confirmation that the members of the college are negative, the self-isolation is the normal procedure. So indeed, last week we had that news regarding one executive vice president, and over the past days we had two additional cases of two additional college members who have entered into self-isolation because of that close contact with somebody who had tested positive. The measures existing for college meetings are sufficient in our view to ensure that there is no risk of spreading the virus, and these measures imply actually or involve social distancing, which is clearly respected during college meetings, as well as the wearing of the masks when going to the college meeting room. So we have protocols in place to make sure that the risks are limited, and the three members of the college that we discussed about are simply following the protocols which need to be applied as a precautionary step in this situation. Thank you very much. I now see that Hans has a question. So Hans, please go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question on rule of law and the compromise proposal by the German presidency, which has been put out. I'm sure your colleagues have received it as well, and especially because it's based on European Commission proposal from 2018, which has been watered down on some crucial points, and there's also given an implication of the European Council now when sanctions against the countries should be applied. I was wondering whether you have a comment, especially on this watering down of the proposal, how you studied that and how you see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this, Hans. On the discussions which take place currently between the Council and the European Parliament on the multi-annual financial program and Next Generation EU and the rule of law mechanism, which is an important part of it. Our position is very well known, and as we have reiterated most recently, it is important that the Council now clarifies its position and puts forward its position on this so that the negotiations can continue and that we have an agreement on the whole package in time for the MFF and Next Generation EU to be operational from the 1st of January. Our position on the rule of law mechanism itself is very important. We believe that we need a meaningful rule of law mechanism in place because it is our shared interest, that of the member states and that of the EU, to have good rules in place for protecting the budget. But this is all what we have to say about this today. I invite you now to raise your hand if you have additional questions on this subject. I do not see any hand raised, so I will open the floor again to any other subjects that you would like to address with us today. So please raise your hand if you have other questions for us today. This doesn't seem to be the case, so thank you very much. Have a good afternoon and see you tomorrow.